me like cook food. Even though gotta move like a crook move. We was together on the block since for lunch. We should have been together having Four Seasons brunch.
What is up, podcast land? Welcome to another episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler, and before I introduce my buddy John, who is the co-host of 215 Live, we're doing a special crossover episode here. I'm going to do a little house cleaning first. Number one, I'm coming to you live on the Squawker app. Squawker, SQUAWKR.co. For anybody who wants to download that on any of their Droids or iPhones, you can do that and hear us live. All the shows here in the amazing Yellow Jacket Media Studios in bustling Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. Last week I forgot for the first time to dedicate a show. So I'm going to do that tonight to make sure I don't forget. And tonight's real special. I get to dedicate the show to my mama. It is her 75th birthday, Louise, Big Wheezy, as we call her. She is 75 years old. My mom is my hero. She is my role model, the person that I strive to be just like every single day. And she taught me everything about work ethic and how to love unconditionally. So, Mama, happy birthday. I love you. And we'll see you next weekend. All right. John,
What's up?
what's up? How are you?
What's up? I'm excited.
It's the first time. I've been on your show.
Yes, you have more than once.
Yes. This
Yeah.
is the first. Is this the first crossover show at the studio?
It is. Even though we're not doing 215 Live tonight, it still counts.
It's not happening tonight. I thought
Nah.
Frankie's on vacation.
Yeah, we're taking a break this week, so
Wow. all
we're
right.
retooling.
Wow. So it's not even a crossover.
Yeah.
You're just
well, it's a crossover.
you're
I'm
a
crossing
guest.
over. Yeah, I'm crossing over into your show.
You're just a true guest now. All right. Awesome. So you've seen the show. You better have seen the show.
I've seen it. I've listened to it. I've subscribed to it.
All right. And did you rate and review yet?
Yes, I pimp it out. I do everything. Whatever you need me to do, I do it.
I love that. I love
Yes.
that. All right. So you know the show is pretty much free form. We don't have plans. I pretty much wing everything here, except for one question, and that one question is the same for every single person, except I changed the name of the person.
I hope so. It'd be
'Cause it would
weird
be
if
weird
you
if
asked
I-
me who's Todd Harriman.
Yeah, that would. Listen, we all have our opinion of Todd, and they're all very high. But the question I'm going to ask you, just like everybody else, is who is John?
That's a good question. And you gave me a little bit of a teaser earlier and told me you were going to answer that, and I still don't have anything. It's kind of hard because you got to get into the mode of talking about yourself, and nobody's really comfortable doing that, because you're worried about what people think. Well, for me, I guess I think ever since, I don't want to come off corny from the beginning, but ever since I started dating my wife, I've just been like the husband dad. Really, I had my first son at 20 years old, and I was married at 21. So for me, that's all I know. Like the family guy, you know what I mean? Like that's all I really know. And there's really not much to the story, Matt, to be honest with you. It's just, I focus my whole life on that. It's weird. I know everybody does. I'm not in this different, view of myself, but never really been anything else. Since I was 18 years old when I met my wife, that's all I know. You know what I mean?
Your mic is all Jackie wonky. Yeah, it's like popping in and out.
Jackie wonky?
Jackie, it's a new term.
Nice.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Is it good?
Every time you talk and move away, it sounds like you're starting all over again.
How about now? They good?
Yeah, they're good. It's just
That
when you're
better?
moving away from the mic, it seems like there was
Sorry.
nothing coming out.
Apologies. Did
Come
you
on.
get any of that?
We got it all. We got it all. I just didn't want it to continue on to where everybody is he?
Yeah. No, but that's pretty much it. That's in a nutshell. I know it's not entertaining and it's not, quality content, but I really don't know anything else.
Well, we're both cops. You were
Yeah.
a cop at one point in time. I'm still a cop. So our entire job is based on asking one question and solving the crime, right?
Right.
Solving the person's problem, whatever the case might be. So that's the format of the show.
Right.
And you give me content, which is whatever you give me, and then we sort of build it off of that. So one of the things I would say when someone asks me who you are, if I had to paint a picture of you, just through our personal interaction and then what I know on social media and what you put out there, what you described is actually everything outside of podcast host and co-manager, founder of Yellow Jacket Media. You are a dad and a husband. You love highlighting those people in your life,
Yeah.
your kids and your wife. And I think that's cool because it says two things about you. Number one, that you serve others, right? That you give of your time and your attention and your energy is built towards creating happiness and safety and security and all those things that comes with being a dad and a husband for your family. So for me, that's a huge way of looking at yourself, because that's what I would have explained to someone who didn't know you. That's how I would explain you.
Right.
And I think that's cool that, your boys are your world. And, you got one of those cool marriages where you've been together forever, right?
Yep.
When did you meet your wife?
1998. We graduated. Rob, our producer, we went to high school together. We graduated June of 97. I met her March of 98. So, 7 months, whatever it is, fresh out of high school. And, that was it.
Now,
that was it for me.
Is she a Philly girl?
Yeah. Grew up in Morrell Park, row homes. That's all she's ever known. I worked with her mom. It's a funny story. I got a job at JCPenney and worked with her mom. And that's how we ended up meeting.
Lingerie, is that where you were working?
Yeah, hell yeah. I was the trier on her. But yeah, so
John I'm 6'3", 250. John's 6'6", 6'5". What are you? Still, you didn't pick that up. You have
250.
There we
6'5",
are.
250.
All right, so he's same build, 2 inches taller. So together, we took a picture last week with Harriman's.
Yeah. And
John was on one side, I was on the other, and Todd Harriman's was in the middle. And we got some technical repair going on here.
We're good.
Now we're good. It was weird. Like, I've never been the smallest guy in a photo. I may have been not the tallest.
Yeah.
But I have never been the shortest guy, and I was the shortest guy in that photo.
Yeah.
So you with a teddy on is what I just pictured when you said you were going to try her on.
It's pretty hot.
That's one of those, like you're having an erase, and it's just not erasing.
Delete.
It's there. All right. So you met your wife and you worked with her mom.
Yes.
And when you met your wife, now I remember every detail of the night that I met my wife.
I do too.
Except for the fact that I don't remember what she looked like.
Right.
And I'll tell you that story in a second. But I want to hear how you met your wife's story.
It's funny that you say that, because I have exactly the same kind of story. So her mom worked in this area, JCPenney, where they took the clothes out of the boxes, put them on the racks to go out to the floor. And you always had to pass that section to go out to break or go out to the mall or wherever. So I used to always stop because her mom always had like candy and treats and stuff like that. You'd always hit her up like right before, you go out on the floor. So one day I'm leaving early to go to lunch, and I walk out, and you have to walk out through the offices. And my wife and her mom, and I've never met her mom. Never met her daughter. I met the mom and I met the sister, but I never met my wife before. They were standing in the doorway. So instead of, 17-year-old kid about to turn 18, I'm probably awkward. I weighed probably 150 pounds at the time. Instead of saying, excuse me, like a normal person would, I tried to squeeze by and actually tripped over them and fell into the payphone out in the hallway. And like I said, being the nervous, dorky kid, big, skinny, dopey kid, I just turned around and was like, oh, excuse me, and like ran out. So I never officially saw what my wife looked like. Later on that day, something just told me, like, go to Arlene, who's the mom, and just ask for your daughter's number. My wife could have been hideous. I have no idea. But I was just like, that was your daughter, huh? And I'd walk away from her. And then I come back like 10 minutes later. I'm like, so that was your daughter. And eventually she's like, John, do you want her number? And I'm like, yeah. If you could give it to me, that'd be great. I'm like wiping snot from my nose. And then I finally got it. And her mom went home that day from work and told my wife, this guy that I work with is going to be calling you. My wife wanted nothing to do with it. She's like, you got a guy from JCPenney calling me, like, he's probably the biggest dork in the world. She was right, clearly. But like, that's how, but like you said, Matt, I never even really it's not like she had like that aura coming behind her with the wind blowing. And I looked, I'm like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. Never even laid eyes on her.
All right. So follow up to that question is, when you finally laid eyes on her.
Yeah.
What was your first reaction?
Well, she came down to pick me up. We went out on a date.
She picked you up?
Yeah. I lived in Frankfurt, dude. None of us drove. We had one friend that drove. He drove me to the location we were meeting. My wife brought a friend, so I brought my friend. That was our first date. We hung out, and it's weird. Like you hear these stories about how like it's love at first sight and all this other stuff, and to avoid being corny, I don't get it, but I something like she essentially was my first girlfriend because I played basketball through high school. I wasn't really into like trying to find a girl or whatever. So this was like my first true like date or whatever. I don't know. Something just told me like I was living at her house like a week later. Like I never left. I'd always go there. When she came back from work, I was there.
You're like an old shirt.
Dude, I'm telling you, you just can't get rid of me. But yeah, I mean, it was just something that I guess just something about it, that it's weird. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You kind of just know, you know what I mean? And I'm sure you felt the same way. Like you kind of just know.
Well, all right. I'll tell you my wife. She laughs every time I tell the story because I went to Reed's and Bluebell. I knew the owner. He owns the Trap Tavern, which is right near where I live, and so I would go to Reed's on certain nights, and it was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, not the night Wednesday night, which is the busy night, Tuesday night. So it was pretty dead. And I went with a buddy, and my goal was to get as drunk as I possibly could. So I was dancing with 2 pitchers of beer, just drinking my face off. And my buddy was sitting next to Lauren, my wife, who's a beautiful blonde, and was hitting on her. And she was there as like a wingman for her friend who was there meeting a guy. So they were talking. And after a while, I'm just oblivious, dancing by
Making
myself.
a fool of yourself, right?
With 2 pitchers of beer. Literally by myself on a dance floor with Phoebe and Brian was the name of the band. If anybody remembers Phoebe and Brian from the early 90s. And they would do all the beach towns, and they had a pretty good following. So a little while later, my wife's friend comes over to me and says, "What do you think about my friend Lauren?" I'm like, "Who's Lauren?" She's like, "The girl that's been talking to your friend all night." I said, "Well, why don't you ask him? He's the one that's been talking to her." And she's like, "She's not really interested in him, but she thinks you're cute and goofy."
Nice.
I've literally made a life out of cute and goofy, right? So mostly goofy. I go up and I'm, mind you, I'm blind drunk. I remember the moments of what happened, but I couldn't remember what she looked like. I just remember blonde, and I gave her my police department business card, and she looks at it and she goes, "You're a cop," and I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Am I supposed to be impressed?" I'm like, "I guess not."
Yeah.
And that was it. And we left. And
you gave a business card.
I did. I rocked
that's
Royers Ford Police Department business card. That's where I was working.
That's pretty legit. That is legit.
With my pager number written on the back.
Of course.
Because I didn't have a cell phone. This was 1993. I lied, 94, November 94. So 3 days later, my pager goes off, and I'm on duty, and I go to the local Sunoco and use their phone to call her back. And she says she's going to be at the Trap Tavern that night, or that Friday night, and wanted to know if I wanted to meet her. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I called another buddy, a different buddy, because I didn't trust the one I took because I thought he might try to scam on her, because he did that to me in high school. So I called his buddy up. I'm like, listen, I need someone to roll with me to the Trap. I'm going to meet this girl, and I'll be honest with you, I just remember she was blonde.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what she looks like. He goes, all right. And I said, so here's the deal. If she's hot, we stay. If she's not, we roll.
Right.
That's just it's going to be in and out quick.
Right.
Pull the Band-Aid off. If it wasn't going to be there, then I'm out. So I walk in, and when you walk into the Trap Tavern, the bar is like an L, and her back was right to where the door. She was sitting at the bar, and the door opened up. She turned around. I went, oh my God. And I tapped him on the chest. I said, yo, dude, we're staying. And that was it. That's how I met my wife. And
nice.
Started dating then. And I, like you, I never left. And I always had a rule that if I really liked a girl, I played it so like Prince Charming, chivalrous. Like if I was really into her, I wanted to make sure she saw my best in the beginning. And
of course,
other parts of my life, I may not have
prepared
taken
you
that
for the worst later.
Right. So I think I hooked her with that. And then I slowly let go of some of that. And she realized that he's still not a bad dude. Yeah. So it's been 25 years
I was gonna say.
That we've been together. So we're very lucky in that regard. And you said you had a kid at 20.
Yeah. So we met in March of 98. We were dating for 3 months when she got pregnant with my first son.
All right.
We tell everybody because it's true, but like this is why it's so weird. Like when me and her look back on it, it's weird, but like we actually planned that. And everybody's like, wow, you were 19 years old. Where do you get in the mindset that you planned that? It was just something we did. I don't know why we did it. I mean, obviously, like we loved each other, but it was only 3 months. But it was, I guess, just something telling both of us because she worked 2 jobs. She bought us a car. Like I was a loser basically working at J.C. Penney, like coming from Frankfurt. So like it wasn't like we were in any sort of like financial position to make that decision, but we did. And I had my first son April of '99. We bought our first house that year. I was 20 when we bought our first house, and it's just been kind of like the same ever since. 4 boys later, we've been in 4 different houses. I finally was able to get into a position to get them into a single home in a nice neighborhood. Knock on wood, I've been fortunate. Ups and downs and everything else like the rest of us. We're all married guys here, but I don't know, man. Just when you start off at 18 years old, meeting them at 17, turning 18 or whatever it was, you don't think it's going to last that long. There's a lot of those stories that don't last, but here we are, 20, almost 22 years later. I think it's pretty impressive. You know what I mean?
It is. And I think, one of my being a parent is literally the hardest, but yet the coolest job. If you think about it in what it is you're doing, not I have a kid and I have to feed it and clothe it and protect it, but literally the molding of another human being to become something that you envisioned,
Yep.
that you purposely and intentionally created this person to become this, knowing who they become, like seeing their personality develop and their strengths and their weaknesses, and that intentional component to being a parent. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by the, I'll give you my daughter for an example. And I tell this story all the time that the first 5 years of her life, while I was present and I was a very diligent father in the sense of what my responsibilities were, but emotionally I was not connected to anybody, not let alone my daughter or my wife. I just had no, because of my brother's death and dealing with that and being in depression and all that stuff. So I didn't really have a chance to have that. When my daughter was born, that, oh my God, I now have this amazing, beautiful thing. To me, it was more of a process driven action than it was an emotionally driven action being a father.
Right.
And with my son, because that shortly after my son was born is when the light turned on in my head and the darkness went away, and I was able to sort of really be invested in with my soul and my heart and all that stuff with my wife and my kids. Once I had that switch, I saw the difference between what was happening from the first 5 years of my daughter's life and the first few months of my son's life to when the switch happened.
Right.
That I became aware of everything, like uber emotionally connected to them.
Right.
And my wife. But my wife is an adult already, and we communicate in adult ways. And when you have a kid that can't speak and doesn't know how to emote yet, it's kind of difficult. And learning how to figure out how they receive information, how they process information, and then how they go and build into the person they are is, to me, fascinating.
Yeah, I agree.
What was your like with your first son? Obviously, you were young. What was it? Has there been a difference between the first and the fourth? And do you consciously see where you are as a father and as a developed human being changing as you have experience with the first one and learning from it? How did it work with you?
Yeah, I think for me, the way I looked at it with my first son was different because I grew up in a broken home. So, I lived with my mom most of the time. My dad was there, but we didn't share probably the connection that we should have. Like we're really close. Like we're close, but not that dad being in the house growing up kind of connection. So when it was time for me to have a child, and then when I realized it was a boy, I knew that I was going to do everything that my dad wasn't able to do. And my dad wasn't absentee by any means. He was more worked all the time. He's a truck driver, worked all the time. When I did go with him on the weekends, he was beat from working all week. So I spent a lot of time with like cousins and stuff. But as soon as I had my first son and I knew like, all right, I'm going to be here. Me and his mother, we love each other. We're going to build this home and build all this. Like I knew right there, like I'm going to do everything I can to never be away from this kid. I'm going to be there for every little thing that he can possibly do. And I was fortunate going into the police academy that I worked last out. So I was able to be there as much as I possibly could. And I took that and I said, well, I'm going to work really hard, but I don't ever want to miss anything, whatever that is. I don't want to miss anything. So at 19 going into 20, I was able to have that mindset, which is weird. And I've always been considered like this older than I was kind of guy. So I was able to kind of take that and, use it to mold my first son and try to, as you said, Matt, like at that age, trying to figure out how to raise another human being. And even now, like I look and go, why do kids even listen to parents? Like I don't, what makes them look at you and go, all right, I'm going to listen to what he says, even if I don't like it. I still think that like, it's amazing to me that that you can take a kid and go, hey, this is what I want you to do. And they go, okay. Like it boggles my mind that you have that much influence on a human being. You know what I mean? And that's what I was able to do with my first son is just make sure like I said, not that my dad was where I go, I'm going to do everything he didn't do. I was just able to take that and go, all right, this is what I'm going to do.
And I think I think mothers are more equipped just naturally.
Yeah, I think so.
To provide that level of comfort and that safety and all. I think they're just wired to do that.
Yeah.
I think we have to figure it out as dads. I don't think it's something, because I think boys in general have to go through boy stuff.
Yeah.
Like you have to be a rebel. You have to, jump out of a tree at 15 feet in the air. You have to, do stupid stuff that makes you.
It's in your DNA.
And there's no way around that. So I think one of the cool things about being a dad is when, I'll use my son as an example. Well, I'll use my daughter first. My daughter, even though she didn't have the emotional connection with me, I didn't have the emotional connection with her for the first 5 years of her life. I was literally working till 3 a.m, getting up 6 a.m, staying up all day, going back in at 3 o'clock on shift. Yeah. And my wife was in, she graduated from Drexel and then decided after getting a marketing degree that she wanted to become a teacher. So she went back to school. And when my daughter was born, she was doing her student teaching. So she was out the door at 7 a.m, home at 3 or 4. So I was physically providing all the duties I was supposed to have. And then once I, came out of that depression and my son was born, I started to really understand my kids, like my daughter's personality and my son's personality as it was growing and becoming more prevalent. And I started to think about the responsibility that I had as a father. And, I had to, I came from a broken home too, but my dad was not around. Sporadic would be a generous term. Right. So I didn't have, for the first 12 years of my life, I didn't have like that dad relationship. Yeah. Like I just didn't have that. I can vacuum the shit out of a house and clean the bathroom like nobody's business, but I had no man skills. Like I learned everything I learned was through mentors of mine, men, manly men that were in my life that were uncles, and my stepfather when he came into my life. Like I learned how to do all that stuff later than most kids. And I realized that I didn't want my son to ever not get the full scope, or my daughter to get the full scope of what both Lauren and I provide.
Right.
And very similar to you, my kids are athletes. Since my daughter, since she was 7, and my son, since he was 6, they've been swimming. And I made a rule that I would sacrifice me first. Like if there was time that I needed for me, and it was at the same time that was one of my kids' events or anything they were doing, I sacrificed and I went and did that. And that was by design, because I wanted my kids to know that everything that they're involved in, that we support all in. There's no outside of police work where in that job you can't change some things, but I also taught my kids how to be understanding and resilient and flexible. And my mom, when you get married, I don't know how it is with you, but all the holidays pretty much are spent with my wife's family on the holiday.
Yeah.
My mom and stepfather are like, listen, the holiday is while it is on a date, whatever it is, Christmas, whatever, the holiday is meaningful because you're together with your family. Right. So whether you have it on the 27th of December or the 23rd of December, it doesn't really matter.
You're still together.
Right. So that's the way my family looks at things, and happy wife, happy life. So I'm never gonna rock that boat, haven't for 25 years and never will. So, but I think being intentional as a father takes more work than a mom.
Yeah.
Because we're just not wired with that DNA.
Yeah, I look at it now. You asked me, like, how do I change from my first son to now? Like, I don't think I did as much, to be honest. Like, I have 4 boys. They're all kind of sort of the same personality, couple things here and there. But I look at it like my grandfather was that tough love. My dad tells a story about how he came home late and my grandpa put boxing gloves on him, and was like, let's go. You don't want to listen to me, to, whatever. And pretty much knocked my dad out. That was okay back then, right? And my dad, from the times that I did spend with him, I used to just look at him and go, yeah, I'm not going to mess with him today. You know what I mean? And he never had to put his hands on me. He never had to, because so I'm the same way with my kids. Like, I don't raise them in this environment where everybody gets a trophy. Let's feel bad for them. If like I need you to learn. I need you to learn. I'm going to be there to guide you, but I need you to learn what's right, what's wrong, that the world's not going to give you everything. Like, I tell my 14-year-old that now, like, he's going through basketball training, and I tell him, dude, if you're sore, you got to fight through it. Like, I'm not going to be like, hey, coach, can he sit down for a minute? He's not feeling too. Like, I'm not that kind of dad. And I've been fortunate because everywhere we go with my kids, somebody's always complimenting how well behaved my kids are. It's because I give them a little bit of tough love, and then I kind of step back, right? So it hasn't changed from my first son to my fourth. I'm a little bit probably more lenient with my fourth than I was, but it's really all the same with all 4 of my kids. They all just kind of handle it differently. But you're right. I think as a dad, you got to be like, shit, I'm going to have all this man stuff coming up as they grow up. Like, my oldest he'll be 21 soon, and it's still tough. Like, I look at him now and I'm like, I'm still trying to navigate how to be this dude's dad. You know what I mean? Because he's now going to start coming to me with like life stuff. I'm like, now I got to give him like life advice, and then he got the baby. It's like, all right, I'm still trying to train him how to be, a big boy. It's tough, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I love those 4 boys. Like, it's just amazing. Every day I walk in the house, no matter where I go, they all come running and give me a hug. Like, that's great. That's a great feeling. You're doing something right.
I think there's 2 things you said there that really stood out. Number one, I think your kids pay attention to everything. Like, there's nothing that gets by these kids.
No.
Everything is absorbed, and it's
displayed.
Processed.
Yep.
And right. And so, my kids, I'm a military guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I treat my kids, the expectations of their behavior, it's a very small window of flexibility in my life.
Right.
With that, like, you have my name. This is how I expect you to behave. I've never been that dad. I don't know if you guys still go to like parent-teacher conferences, but we go to every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
From the time my kid was in kindergarten until they graduated high school. My daughter was a 4.0 student, AP everything. Went to college her freshman year with 18 credit hours already in high school. Right. Towards college. So she was super smart, great athlete. Me and my wife went to every one of her parent-teacher conferences, and the parent-teacher was like, why are you guys here?
Yeah.
We're like, because granted, the results are on, but I need to know that my kid is compassionate, that my kid is
respectful,
kind and is respectful, right, and is helping others, and all the stuff that we give them in our home. I need to make sure that that's being followed through during the 7 hours I loaned them to you 180 right. days a year. Like, I need to make sure they're following through, and this is the only way that I'm going to know. I get my kid's smart, but I was smart too, and I was selling weed in high school. So yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I was a double agent. So yeah. I need to make sure my kids aren't double agents, and that was number one. So that the way your kids act is a direct reflection of what they think about you, mm-hmm. right? That what would dad think or what would mom think? Switch.
Right.
And they have to have that in life. And there's a lot of kids that don't have that switch because there's no expectation of that in their home. So therefore, why would they have it at school or anywhere else in their life? So that's number one. That's phenomenal that your kids, that people recognize.
Everywhere we go. Yeah, we hear it all the time.
And the second part, do you think, because I believe it, that being a cop is like a double-edged sword as a father?
Absolutely. 100%.
How have you seen it?
It's 100%. Like, I everybody always asks me, have I ever wanted a daughter? And I always say no for various reasons. But the cop thing, I always try to explain to people, and you can attest to this with your daughter, but I don't know whether I'd be able to handle having a daughter as a cop. We used to live in a row home, and we had two young girls that grew up next to us. We grew obviously super close to that family, so we kind of felt like they were our family. But as the two girls started to grow up, they were beautiful girls. You know, girls these days, they dress the way they want to. They would frustrate me when I'd see them walk out of the house.
They
I'd
weren't
always
even
say to my
yours.
wife, I'd say to my wife, like, "Oh my God, look what she's wearing," and she'd be like, whatever, breaking my chops or whatever. But I'm thinking, if I'm that way with them, because I knew them since they were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, how would I be with my daughter? Would I be overprotective? Would I be that, like in Bad Boys, showing up at the door with the gun in my hand?
Right.
So with the boys, I think I was harder on them because of that. And Matt, like being a cop, like you see shit. You see mostly bad shit with men, with boys, with kids growing up in neighborhoods. They don't have their fathers, whatever the case may be. So I was overly protective, I think, especially my first son as I was getting into police work, because I was starting to go like, dude, I see these things at work. I don't want you to end up like this. I want to be here for you. I don't want to be an absentee and have you walk in the streets all night long. So I think that caused me to be a little bit more strict with my first son. And then, like I said, got a little bit more lenient as we go along. But it makes a huge difference because we see things that 85% of the population will never see in their lives. And it is it, I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good because it helps you understand raising a boy and what they need.
And yes, 100%. And funny story, little comedy on the point of raising a daughter. So I don't have a rule, but my thought processes are you only have certain things in life that happen at certain points in time in your life. Like the world isn't I can be anything I want to be. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
I can never
Those
fly
are
a
old
plane. I'm
times.
blind and I'm colorblind. Like there's things that I just can never do.
Right.
Because I'm either not talented at, or I have physical limitations, or whatever. I'm not smart enough, whatever. And when my kids find something they're good at, whether it's educationally or athletically, I explain to them, this is what it takes to achieve whatever goal you have. And I don't set your goals. You set your goals. You tell me what your goals are. I help you achieve your goals.
Right.
That's my job as a father.
Right.
And you can change those as you go. But when you make a change, especially if you say, I don't want that now, then you need to come to me and explain to me why. Because as a father, I need to make sure that your logic and the way you make decisions is sound, so that you're not wasting.
You're not just tired of it.
Right. You don't want to work harder or whatever the case might be. So when it came to my daughter with dating, I told her, I said, there are certain things that you set out early on in your life that you wanted to achieve. And you wanted to swim in college. You wanted to graduate with, X GPA. You wanted to get scholarships. I said, all those things require time, energy, and effort.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she wasn't allowed to date, but I said, here's the deal. If you decide to date somebody, number one, that's got to go through me.
Yep.
And I wasn't like threatening, but she knows me. So she knows.
It's only fair. You don't have to be threatening. That's a logical explanation to your daughter.
So I said, all I'm asking for you is that if someone else is going to take time and energy away from you, that it's positively helping you.
Right.
Like it's not a distraction from the things that you only have so much time. You can only be in high school for X amount of years and play X amount of years of high school sports.
Right.
You only get 4 years in college. You can only compete for 4 years. You can do 5 years and have a red shirt, but you only get 4 years of eligibility in college.
Right.
I said, so you have to make sure that if you want to achieve these goals, that you understand your process and how you achieve them. And is it something that's going to work if you throw in a boyfriend?
Right.
So my daughter, I was lucky. My daughter didn't have her first boyfriend until a month before her 21st birthday. So last January, she turns in February, she was 21. That was the first time she had a boyfriend. And never once did I have to worry about boys or anything like that. And that wasn't because I said you can't. I just wanted her to understand the picture.
Right.
Like you only get so many chances to achieve certain things at certain points. You can't go back and be a high school athlete at 30. So you get those 4 years. So for her, and then even when she had a boyfriend, I said, this is She had a half a year left of her junior year and her senior year. I said, you set out goals. Is this going to work in helping you achieve your goals? Is he helping you achieve them, or is he distracting you from them?
Right.
And I said, here's all I expect. Number one, I got to like the kid, and I do. He's a good kid. Number two, he's got to have support. He's got to support what you're doing.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that's going, why are you practicing so much? I need you. Blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
you don't want
like,
that.
I don't need that.
No.
And neither does she. And my daughter's pretty much me, but a female.
Mm-hmm.
As far as my mentality and focus and all that kind of stuff. So way better athlete, way smarter, but I put the same effort that she put in. I just didn't get the same results.
Right.
And I said, this is what I expect. In order for, we had a contract that we signed for college. In order for me to pay for a college, this is what I expect. You have so much in scholarship money. The rest I will pick up if you achieve X.
Mm-hmm.
There's no giving anything in our family. Everything is earned. So she's earned it. She's an All-American. She's got a 3.9 GPA. She's an academic All-American. She's amazing. And I said, just as long as the boyfriend, understands that you have those agreements in place. When he came into the picture, a year and a half left of school, of college, that contract still exists.
Yeah.
That doesn't go away. So just as long as he's a support of that, then we're good. And it's worked out great. And she's very happy, and he treats her good. And that's really all I can ask for.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, that's tough. Like, my oldest has his girlfriend now, and he stays with her and her parents a lot. And that's kind of like sort of what we talked about too. Like, I told him, I want you to find what you want to do in life. Like, he's tried college. It just wasn't for him. And I don't have a problem with that. It's just not for him. I didn't either. I didn't even try. I could have played basketball, and I just didn't. I didn't have the time or energy or the want to do it. So I tell him, I'm like, look, I'd rather you not go to college and spend all this kind of money only to say, yeah, this isn't for me. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I come from a long line of guys who just work. You know what I mean? My grandfather was a mechanic. My dad was a truck driver. Like, I was a cop. Like, that's just what we do. So there's nothing saying he can't go find a job and make a good life for himself. And when he started with the girlfriend, he just got his license to be a public adjuster. He's working with a really good company. He's got his eyes on the prize of how much money he can make, and he really likes what he's doing. And I told him, I said, I like your girl. I like Mary Kate's girlfriend. I said, I like her a lot. She's a sweet girl. You guys get along. You seem to be having fun. I told him when he started this job, don't let it, like, if she started, just like you just said, if she starts giving you crap because you're working too hard or you're not around, like, you have to be able to let her know, like, listen, if we're going to be together, if this is going to be something, like, if me and you are going to end up like my mom and dad did, you have to understand, like, I have to work towards this, right? I can't just be like, oh, I'm not around my girlfriend, I got to quit. Like, you're going to be 21. Like, this is the point where you're starting to build your life. And he completely understood it. And it makes me feel good because for the first time in a while, I look at him and go, all right, he gets it. He gets me. He knows I'm not being a hard ass, because that from that 12 to 17, you want to kill the kid because they're just looking at you and you just look at him like, I want to smash your face. But he's finally at that point now where he's like, I get it. You're giving me the good advice that I need.
But you know why he says he gets it? Because you consistently delivered that, whether he was listening every time or not.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. I would venture to bet that your consistency, and I think in anything in life, consistency is key. If you are consistently present, consistently available, consistently whatever, your son consistently heard you.
Yep.
Whether he applied it every time or not is not the point. But the fact is
he
that
heard it.
when he was 10 or when he's 19, it was the consistent message of this is what I expect. This is the things that you should be looking at. And now as he's maturing and becoming older and understanding life a little bit better and seeing that maybe from 12 to 17 he was a jerk off and he didn't listen, now all of a sudden it's starting to come together. And I think that's, as a father, that's the key to everything. Like, being there and making sure that, like, when I talk to my kids, it's not like out of nowhere I just came up with something.
Yeah.
It's been the same way since they were born.
Yep.
And I think that's important. And I think we probably, and I've never met your wife, but I would assume that you guys communicate well together.
When it comes to the kids, yeah, we do. We support each other.
And I think that's for them to see that. And I'll also add this and I'll give you an example with my wife and I. My wife's been a stay-at-home mom since my son was 2, and he's 17 now. We made that choice because I didn't want my kids being raised by anyone else, and I wanted that consistency. And I'm willing to not have the financial freedom to have the mental freedom of knowing that my kids, when they go out into the world, they're not going to be complete shitheads.
Yeah.
That they've got some semblance of understanding how to live their life and how to treat people and how to work hard and all those things. I work my ass off. I work 100 hours a week.
Yep.
And I told my wife, and we communicated this, and then we shared it with our kids that this is how this world works with us. We are your example. You're going to learn what getting up early in the morning and going to work and coming home late at night looks like, and why we do that. You're going to understand the value of sacrifice. You're going to understand the value of work ethic. You're going to understand the value of sacrificing financial freedom, so that you two don't know that there's no money in the house.
Yep.
You guys don't understand that we are literally scraping by to make sure that you have no concept of how hard it is to do what we give you. Because when you become a mom and dad, and you don't want your kids to feel disappointed in you, and you don't want your kids to think that, oh, I don't have enough, or I don't have this. My mom worked 3 jobs, and I never wore anything. I got every one of my sneakers from Bin and ShopRite or at Kmart.
Yep.
I never had a name brand pair of sneakers till I was 19 years old, when I could buy my own when I was in the Army. We never had a color TV. We lived in apartments our entire lives. My mom would repurpose food in different looks to get different meals, but it was the same food.
Yeah. Yep.
But I never thought, I knew I was poor, but I never thought I went without. And one thing I wanted to make sure of when I was a parent was that if we were going to struggle, it wasn't going to be because I didn't work hard.
Yeah.
And that my wife didn't love them enough when they were home, and I didn't love them enough. Like, that was never going to be the issue. And I think for you with your son, now that he's 19, he's off in the world figuring it out. He's got all those messages in his head that he's going to replay when life sort of throws him a curveball. He's like, crap. And then your voice is going to pop in his head going,
Yeah.
Hey, dipshit, you should do this.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny. I'm sitting here and I'm like smiling, because just about your whole story is like my story. It's really weird how we mirror each other. Like, I grew up on Section 8. I grew up going from house to house. I'd never spent more than 2 years at one house. We bounced all over. I didn't stay consistent in school till 7th grade, and then I met all these knuckleheads and we all went to school together. But it was the same thing, bouncing back and forth and going without. And Christmas time was like, all right, everybody gets one thing that they want and then a bunch of little things that you need. All right. But to me, like, that was normal. It was just, that was what it was. You know what I mean? I didn't think anything of it until I started getting older, and I realized that there was more out there. Like, oh, wait a minute, this is not the way that life works, And that was from that day on, when I had my son, I said, there's never going to be a time where he goes, why don't we have any food in the house? Why don't we, why don't I have any clothes? I didn't spoil them, but I gave them more than I had. Right. So it's not like, oh yeah, get whatever you want. Cause there was limits that we set, but there was never like, why don't I have this? Or I really need this. Why can't you give me this? I don't want to see that look on their face that I had when I knew that I couldn't get something. And it's the same thing that I do now, even now with my kids. Like, me and my wife don't talk about money in front of them. We don't talk about bills in front of them. You try not to, but you minimize it, because you put it perfectly. You never want them to know that maybe this week's a little bit harder. You know what I mean? Just for whatever reason. And I did the same thing as you. When I worked last out, my wife didn't work. Then when she went and became a cop, she was in the academy. I'd get home at 7:45 in the morning. She'd fly to the academy to be there by 8. And I'd stay up all day with whatever kids we had at the time. And then she'd come home and I'd finally go to sleep and then back to work. There was never a point where we had babysitters, few in between, like, right, going out or whatever, but never that full-time babysitter, never daycare, never anything like that, because they pick up on other people's tendencies. They pick up on other people's lessons that they're teaching. My kids, when they grow up, they're going to be me and my wife.
The best of
right,
you and your
with
wife.
a little sprinkles in from their grandpa and grandmom and stuff like that. But I can say if they're successful or if they're failures, it's because of how we raised them. And right now, like I said, knock on wood, I've been completely blessed that my kids are the way that they are. And I think so far we're doing a pretty good job. That's a great feeling.
And I love the fact that the things that I've learned with my kids, I use now when I mentor kids through my business and all that, because I can see what I've learned from my 2 kids and then mentoring other kids is while they all have different personalities, they all come from different backgrounds, but they all have the same want.
Mm-hmm.
And the same want is to be loved, have somebody have their back, and to ensure that they're never left alone.
Agreed.
Right. And that's really what every kid wants. And when you can create that environment for your kid, and not everybody is as fortunate as we are as far as the ability to provide the way we've provided for our kids. And I'm still check to check.
Yeah.
I'm 48 years old, still check to check, because I'm working towards not being that. And my wife doesn't work full time. And so, but I will never, there's never an opportunity where I can't go make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have so many skills and things that I do now that if my wife will go, we're short this month, I'll go work 2 overtime shifts at the police department, or I'll go get a speaking gig, or whatever. I can go training people at Max Out, whatever.
Yeah.
I can always go make money, and that's not. And I want my kids to be resilient and find those things. But when I work with all these other kids, it's not rocket science. It really isn't. If you are just a clear communicator and you set examples and you create areas of accountability and responsibility, and you hold them accountable to those things, and you don't give them everything that they want, and you make them work for certain things. My kids, every summer, my son will say, I want a new surfboard, I want to buy a computer. I'm like, well, here's the deal. I don't work nearly enough to be able to buy you a $1,500 gaming video gaming computer. So here's the deal. You got to figure out how this summer to go make $1,500. Goes and makes $1,500, buys his computer. So while we give them everything that we can give them,
right,
I don't give them the things that are exorbitant. I don't pay for everything that he wants. I said, okay, here's the deal. You get these things, but if you want that, that's on you, and I'll help you figure out how to go make that money. Right. But that's on you. Same thing with my daughter. And I think those are the cool lessons that as a parent that we can always be proud of, in knowing that no matter what, they're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like right now, like the best feeling in the world is it's funny because I have another son who's in that 12 to 17 range. And like, I love my son Ryan to death, but there's times I really want to strangle him because he's in that range, right? My son Eric, who's 20 now, he's now like, he'll text me out of the blue, like, hey, love you, chief. Like, whatever, hey, we should go do this or we should do that. And I'm like, this is great. I don't get upset that it took till he's 20 to realize it, because I know being a boy, there's that stage. I'm sure my dad wanted to smash my face between that, that stage. So I don't take as much offense to it, but it's cool to have, like, we'll have just like regular conversations now. Yesterday, I asked him about Mac Miller. That's his favorite rapper ever. I said, hey, I'm starting to kind of get into him. What should I listen to? Where to start? And we have like these whole conversations now. And I'm like, he's more of like my friend now, now that he's going to be 21. And it's great because I know that I had a hand in getting him that way. Like, he sees how much my dad means to me. He sees how much my grandfather meant to my dad and meant to me. Like, my grandfather's tattooed on my arm. There's a reason for that. I'm named after him. Like, he sees that the men in the Crichton family, like how much the person who's come before him meant to them. So he sees that, and it's cool because he's starting to display the same kind of feelings that I did at his age. And like you just said, you don't give him everything, but you give him just enough. And I think he respects that now. Whereas when he was younger, I felt like, man, am I giving him enough? Like, am I neglecting him? Now I'm like, all right, he gets it. You know what I mean? And that's a great feeling to have that friend. You know what I mean? But he still knows that I'll be your dad too. Right. When you do something that I might not like.
My son's lucky in the fact that I wear my emotions on my sleeve, always have, and he's like me. My daughter's not. My daughter's more on the emotional side, like my wife. Mm-hmm. She's very structured. Everything's got lists. When she was a young girl for swimming, she had all the like Post-it notes on her wall with all the times and things she wanted in each event that she wanted to achieve, and then she got them. She would put them in a box, mm-hmm. and at the end of the swim season, she see what's left and why didn't I achieve those, and then adjust. She has every practice she's ever had written down in books, so that she can go back, and when she is having a bad September, she can go back all the other Septembers to see when she had her best September and try to replicate that. It's almost it's like a journal.
That's pretty good.
And my son's the opposite. He's like me. He wings everything.
Yeah,
literally, I wing 99% of my life is winged.
Yeah,
I have nothing written down. If it's not on my phone, it doesn't exist. But my son and my daughter's now gets it now that she's 21, but it took a long time for her to really absorb the family concept. Like, what does it mean to be a Cubbler?
Mm-hmm.
And my son is named after my brother who passed away in '89. So he gets the connectivity component, that emotional connection to another person that is no longer here. And we go hunting every year. And I've never actually killed an animal hunting. I've been going since I was 15 just to drink in the woods. And that's all I do. But now I take my son out and we walk around the woods and I wait for him to maybe shoot something. But he hasn't shot anything yet because we don't have a whole lot of deer where we go.
It's just a bond, though.
Well, he goes, Dad, hunting's not about hunting. I said, what do you mean, buddy? He goes, hunting's about our family. Every year we come, it's the same people. We're like a family. He goes, that's what this is about. I went, shit.
Yeah. You're like, what did I do? Yeah.
Oh, man.
Where did you get that from?
Right. I love that. And you're absolutely right. And that's that when you see your kids get the importance of moments, especially when people are getting older, like my mom and my stepdad, and I have other moms and dads in my life that I call mom and dad, that call my kids or grandkids, and my wife the daughter-in-law, and it's this connectivity of
people that were important to you.
Absolutely. And he gets how important they are and how important them knowing how thankful and appreciative he is of that. I think that's the cool when you see when they evolve into that, and you're like, man, yes.
Yeah, it is a good feeling. Like it when my grandma passed away not too long ago, my kids were fortunate enough to have been around most of their great grandparents. So when they pass away, you kind of like, does a kid really even understand what this person meant to me? When she passed away, like I could tell they understood like how important she was to the family. She wasn't just, Nan. She was important to the family. And now I don't have to tell them how important. I know that they know that. They express how important that she was. When we go to family functions, I know that they're going to go give my dad a hug. They're going to give my stepmom a hug. They're going to be part of the family. They're just not just those kids that just sit on their phones and go, when can we go home? And it's a great feeling because family is important to me. And I'm kind of instilling that in them. And it's just, you really do get that yes feeling because I really just, I winged being a dad for the first, however many years with my first son, to be able to see them turning into something other than criminals or, bank robbers. I mean, it's a pretty good feeling knowing that I did something right in life. You know what I mean? And that's the legacy you're going to leave. We're all gone. Who's the next one up? Are you going to look at is somebody going to look at your kids like shit bags, or are they going to be like, these are pretty good kids. Matt did a really good job with these two, Matt and Lauren. You know what I mean?
And I think when I do a lot of my talks, I usually focus my talks, especially when I go into schools or civic groups or stuff like that. And I talk about legacy. I talk about, when you die, who will stand up at the church and testify about your life? Like who will say, John meant this to me and John did this. And I remember this one time when John did this and it was such an amazing thing or whatever. I said, you got to intentionally live life now. Like this isn't, you just don't wing it like I did for a large majority of my life. And then all of a sudden you realize that, holy shit, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I got people I'm responsible for now. They're looking up to me. And I think when you live intentionally, when you go, okay, this is how I want my life to be remembered. And I always tell people when I'm solving problems, I go from the end and work my way backwards. Like what result am I looking for? And then I work my way backwards. And that helps me start.
Right.
I can't start with a problem and work step by step towards the solution, which is the end game. I work backwards because for me, when I die, whether it's tomorrow or it's in 30 years, I need to make sure that by the end of today, was it enough?
Yep. And
I tell my kids this isn't morbid, but they've been through a lot of death. My wife's sister passed away 3 years ago from cancer. Like they've experienced it. My grandfather, my kid's great grandfather died a couple of years ago. Like this is all real. Like this, people die.
Yeah.
It's not forever. You're not forever. My brother died at 21. Live intentionally. Figure out who do I want to be. If tomorrow is the last day I live, did I live with intention? And will people go, Andrew or Becca or your four boys, were they everything that they could have been with what they were given and the time they were given? Right. I think that's the key to any good parenting is if you can instill that in them, not in a, like, I'm afraid of dying, but in a, listen, man, we don't know. Let's get our shit done, man. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think that's really what it comes down to for me. That's what I want my kids to have, that urgency. My daughter never won a race, like never came in first. In swimming, there's heats, right? So you have the fastest heats, which is usually the top 8 swimmers.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are going to end up with the top 8 times, which are the top 8 finishers. But there's all these heats before. Well, she never even came in first in one of the slower heats until midway through 9th grade. And she's 3-time All-American, 3-time academic All-American, going to be going to her 4th trip to NCAAs. She's one of the top Division II swimmers in the country. And she never touched the wall first until 9th grade.
Yeah.
When she realized that that's what she wanted, was to be the very best at what she's going to do. She's going to leave Bloomsburg as the greatest female swimmer ever in the history of that school. That's 150 years. I don't know how long it's been around, but how many people have come before her?
Yeah.
And Cubbler is going to be the best.
Right.
My son wants to go he wants to be a Navy SEAL. I know that we've been in conflict since 2001. Every year. Prior to that, people went in the military for 25 years and never saw an ounce of conflict.
Yeah.
Everybody's in conflict now when you go in the military. If I would have, luckily I was Army intelligence, and while I went to the Gulf War, I wasn't putting a machine gun or driving a tank. I wasn't emotionally and mature enough to make life and death decisions when I was 20 years old. And my son is literally following timetable everything that happened with me. So I told him, you got to go into college for 4 years. Go ROTC, go to one Naval Academy or West Point, but you've got to go spend 4 years maturing and learning how to be a leader.
Right.
So that when you go into the military, you're leading men, not following them. And that, while that's true, what I really want is a 4-year window for him to get much more ready.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just, I need to know because my son's going to go to combat.
Yeah.
My son will become a Navy SEAL because he wants that so bad.
Yeah.
There's no other option for Navy SEALs but to be in combat. I need to know that my son has all the tools that he can possibly have to be successful.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he's going to be perfect. And the outcome will be the outcome, and we're not in control of that. But with what you're given, you have all the tools to be successful, and that's what I want him to have. And that's all, as a parent, you got to be willing to sometimes make those decisions for them and say, listen, I support you, but here's why I'm a little bit trepid. And I need you to understand that you are literally a mirror of me.
Yeah.
And when you give these kids, and if you consistently have always done that, it's not going to be out of left field. And they're going to go home. Dad doesn't believe in me. Mom doesn't believe in me. They don't think I can become one, so they want me to go to college. No, it's just, man, I need you to get 4 more years better.
Yeah, I agree. I just try to stay consistent with them all, and we do support them. And there's times where I go, yeah, I don't know. Like, my 9-year-old wants to play tackle football, and I'm like, I mean, I guess, but I'll support it. But, I'm going to tell you that I'm not happy about it or give you the reasons why I'm not happy about it. I do the same thing with my 14-year-old. Like, there's probably times where he hates my guts because I'm probably harder on him than I've been with any of my kids. But just because the kids are different. It is what it is. But going back to one of the things you said real quick, you talked about, your own mortality and you got to live for. One of the things that I do is I say, I don't look into the future. Me and my wife are always going back and forth on this. I don't look into the future. I don't look at things that I want to attain in 20 years because I don't want to be, I just turned 40. I don't want to be sitting there at 60 going, what the hell did I do with the first 60 years of my life? Like, I don't think that I lived the way that I should have. So I live every day by the day. Let's get through this day. Let's do as much as we can in this day because, like you said, you had a brother that died at 21. Like, I had a cousin who passed away at 25. Like, you never know, right? So why look 20 years down the line at something you may never attain? Because all you're going to be doing is fighting to get to that point, right? So no, I want to live for today. If I can take advantage as much as I can for today, let's do that. My kids are the same way. Like, oh, I want to do that. Hey, let's figure out what we're doing today. Tell my wife, I don't want to wake up 60 and go, what the hell did I do? Because you don't get that time back, right? I know it's cliche, but you don't. And I tell my son, like, listen, dude, you're going to be 21. You're going to start realizing that life sucks at times. He says it now, like, man, I got this bill, I got my car, blah, blah. I say, yeah, guess what? At times life blows, but there's an awful lot of really good out there. So don't get stressed out to where next thing you know, you're 40 going, why did I worry about the dumbest shit? Now I'm 40. Like, I don't get those times back. Like, enjoy it now. You know what I mean? And I think my wife really likes that I have that attitude because she's a stressor and I'm not. So we have that like happy
Yin yang,
medium, and I
yeah.
try to bring her down to my level at times. And I think that's what makes the last 22 years successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a partnership. My wife, like I said, she's as structured a human being as there is. And I know her triggers. I know, and listen, I'm overly aware of human behavior and body language from living with a brother who stuttered and was autistic and being a cop for 26 years and working Army intelligence. Like I've been in this environment for a very, very long time. So I can see minor changes in people's personalities and moods and pick up on those things. And so I know things that are triggers for my wife, and I try to avoid those triggers at all costs because the last thing I need to do is get her.
Because you're smart.
Yeah, I don't want her fired up at me, and I certainly don't want her stressed out.
Nope.
So creating those environments for her is just as important as it is for us, for our kids. And she does it for me. I mean, she literally controls my life. Like she's my manager. Like without my wife, I would be a complete mess.
Oh, I agree.
She controls, like I wouldn't know what to eat. I told her, I said, if you died tomorrow, our kids would be homeless. They'd have no food. They may go to school twice a week because I would forget what time they got to be where. Like they would never make a practice. Like none of those things would ever occur because I haven't had to worry about those things for 25 years because my wife has had that stuff locked down. I just go out and I work my ass off so that whatever they need, I can financially provide. And then emotionally, I'm there for my kids for every one of their events, everything they need. I tell my wife, we sit down with the schedule. I said, where do I need to be and when?
Yep.
Like if it's on my phone, I'll make it.
I do the same.
But if you tell me tomorrow that I have to be somewhere and I've got 7 other things planned, I don't know how I'm going to unscrew that. I said, so I need to have this all mapped out.
Yeah.
What are we know what every game and every practice, and I know it all. So that's the key to having that relationship with your wife, that balance where she controls the things that she can control. And I always tell people, I wrote it. One of my kids I mentor got married this past weekend. And I've been mentoring her since I was a strength coach and mentor since she was in junior in high school. And now she's a therapist and she's married and lives in the city and just awesome. But she had like a time capsule box. And I wrote 2 pieces of marital advice that they're going to open in 5 years. I said, in 5 years, you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass, but this is the way you set it up.
Yeah.
You can read it right now if you want.
Yeah.
And one of the things I said is the keys to my marriage, at least, is areas of responsibility. And what I mean by that is, like, if the grass is high and both of you cut the grass, there's no one really to blame because one could say, oh, I thought you were doing it. The other one's going to think I did, right? I don't care what anybody says. Blame is essential for making up. If someone doesn't own their shit, there's really no making up. I may forget about it and be okay with it, but there's no resolution to that.
Right.
So in our marriage, there was clearly defined areas of responsibility. I had all outdoor stuff. For a long time, I was the bathroom guy. My wife was the food person. She went grocery shopping. She made the dinners. I did the cleanup. Like my wife, when she's done cooking, it just sits there and it'll stay there for a damn week.
Yeah.
If I don't, but she'll be like, there's still that pot in the sink that you didn't wash.
I get it. Yep.
And I'm like, you're absolutely right. I'll go get that.
Yeah.
Like there's no arguing with that. Like I know what's mine and what's hers. And when you have that, granted there's some mutual stuff, but for the most part, if you can knock out the ones that just have to get done and you know who's doing it.
The everyday stuff.
Yeah. It's important to have that. So I put that on the note. And then the second part was always support one another, even when you don't want to.
Yep.
Like even when you think they're dead wrong, you got to be there. Doesn't mean you can't have a conversation, but at the end of the day, I got my wife's back 24/7, no matter what.
Yeah, I got you.
And I just think, first of all, I bet you didn't think this hour was going to be all about this. You probably thought we were going to sprinkle in some Sixers and Eagles talk. But,
no, not at all. We got time for that later.
Yeah. I think a lot of people need to know more about you. And I mean, Frank has already done a lot of that with his Broken Hearts Club podcast, which I hope he's
coming back. Yeah, that's coming back.
I just think it's important to see the human side of people. That's why, at Harriman's, we didn't talk a whole lot about sports. We talked about life. And
I bet he enjoyed that because it's important. I was hoping you didn't talk sports because we spend 2 hours a week talking sports.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you don't want to be that sports guy. I tell Frankie all the time, like every time I go to a party, I'm the sports guy now. Hey, what do you think of this team? What do you think of that team? And you get exhausted from it. And it's no fault of the person asking you that you're just that guy. And then for 18 years, I was the cop.
Right.
No matter what party I went to, anything, I was the cop. That's all people ever knew me as. So you don't know. Nobody, even Frankie, who I grew up with, who's my best friend, when I went on Broken Hearts, I told him stuff that even he didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because those things don't come out unless you ask, right? So to have a show like you have, I think it's great because you have to be able to like I found out so much shit about Frankie when he started Broken Hearts that I was like blown away. Like I was emotional over learning things that from a kid that I grew up with. So you have to it's nice to be able to have a platform like you have here that you can open people up and get so that you know that you're not just dealing with the guy who talks Sixers. Like
Right.
anybody can do it. Any meathead can sit down and talk sports. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's why I enjoyed the hour, and that's why I enjoy what you do. And I'm glad that you came to here to do it at Yellow Jacket because I thought it was important to have this sort of platform here. We didn't want to just be the sports network. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you guys are killing it, and just for the record, I had some trepidation because of the other place.
Of course,
there was some things that weren't necessarily up to my standards, and but you guys have knocked it out of the park. I'm a huge fan. Love Yellow Jacket. Love the guys that are part of it. The guys that are on the show. The other shows are rocking it, and I think this is just the beginning of something huge.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to do a little bit of closing out here, and then once I point to our man Rob, he's going to play some music to get us out of here. But I didn't say it in the beginning. This show is brought to you by. Now it used to be called Max Out Equipment. We made a company-wide change to call ourselves eForce Strength. Our product is called eForce. We have some partners that explaining what Max Out was kind of confusing. So, but eForce is what it's called, the device, our technology. So that's what we're called, eForce Strength. So it is brought to you by eForce Strength, which is the world's only eccentric overloading piece of equipment that allows you to offload weight in both the eccentric, which is the down direction, and concentric, which is the up direction. So imagine lowering on a barbell 315 pounds and then raising 200 pounds on every repetition. Mind blown. Anyways, if you want to learn more about that, we're going to be at the Philadelphia Health Fest for Blue Cross Blue Shield tomorrow, presenting to a bunch of medical experts on the value of what our device can do in both the strength and conditioning world and the neurological and neuromuscular rehabilitation world. So you want to learn more, you can go to eForce, EFORCE, strength.com, eForceStrength.com to learn more. It's been a pleasure, man, having you on the show.
I enjoyed it.
And we'll have to do this again. Maybe We'll get Frankie involved too. So everybody, thank you very much. God bless. And for God's sake, go out and be kind to one another.
Sure nothing was missing, so we could have everything you didn't. A patient teacher, strong, steady leader, firm handshaker, never met a stranger, tough as steel, hard to go. It took a while, but now I know